Hello, it's June 21st. It's about 25 degrees, and this is the average Albertan with your six-pack report for the week. I'd like to start with the COVID update. In Alberta today, we have 438 hospital beds occupied with patients with COVID. 127 of those patients reside in ICU. The total deaths of patients with COVID has increased by 36 to a total of 2,228. I sympathize with each and every one of those families. The average age of morbidity with COVID is still at 80 years old. The overall survival rate of any age remains at 99.03. And for the under 80 crowd, we are still at 99.6% survival rate. I think it's pretty safe to say that we're not all going to die. The total adverse effects from the 3 vaccines available in Canada, however, has increased to 5,989. 1,126 of those are considered serious. That's an increase of 150 or roughly 15% in a week. Now, that is concerning because the vaccine uptake has only increased by 5% over the last week. So that tells me that we either have an issue with the demographic that's being vaccinated currently, or the vaccines being used at this point in time have an oddity amongst the history that we have. And of those 1,126 serious side effects, 76 resulted in death. Moving on to number 2, it is widely believed or perceived that there was a bill passed in the Canadian Parliament the other day that basically allows the federal government to postpone elections indefinitely, using the pandemic as an excuse. And that's not actually correct. There was a motion that did pass 327 to 1. Derek Sloan was the only MP to vote against it. But what it stated was simply that it would be irresponsible for any government to call an election during a pandemic. So I know naysayers will say, well, that's just a reason for Trudeau to keep himself in power indefinitely. But after a little research, I found that this might be a little more greed-based than anything. It turns out there's 142 federal MPs right now that are not currently eligible for pension, and they won't be until October 19th. So this is just my 2 cents, but I see this motion as a way to delay the possibility of an election until after that date, using public safety rather than greed as the motive for that. So hopefully I'm correct on that. Thirdly here, Trudeau has now committed to vaccines being the only metric that will allow the Canadian-American border to open, and he set that percentage to 75%. Now, I don't agree with that, but regardless, what really doesn't make sense is that he has said a strict no to the border opening on June 22nd, which is in 3 weeks. And we're currently at 60% vaccinated, and we're increasing at 5% per week. So by June 22nd, math says we would be at 75%. So all he's doing by delaying this is further hurting the Canadian economy by depriving us of the more than $7 billion that we've lost in American tourism revenue and the tens of thousands of jobs that go along with that. So it's unfortunate that that's a stance he's taken. I think over the next week or two, we'll probably learn a bit more about that as to why he's taken that stance. But at this point, it's yet to be seen. The media narrative on COVID, number 4, has completely flip-flopped. Originally, to speculate that it originated in a lab in Wuhan and was passed to a worker in that lab directly from one of the horseshoe bats was considered a conspiracy theory. There was people arrested, people in China actually disappeared over this, etc., etc. And now, even Tony Fauci has said that it is highly probable that that is exactly how this virus originated. What is unknown at this time is the amount of human influence that was made on SARS-CoV-2 compared to SARS-CoV-1. So that's yet to remain, or yet to be seen how much they altered it to get it to this point. Number 5, I should probably not even bring this up, but I think we need to talk about it. It's what's going on in Kamloops with the residential school discovery. I want to put some perspective on this that a lot of people aren't getting from the media. First of all, this is not a mass burial. This is not one giant pit where they dumped a bunch of children. They found 215 unmarked graves. I'm not saying that's acceptable, but I'm saying that's what happened. Now, this school was open from 1890 until 1978. That's 88 years. So 215 graves over 88 years, that's 2.4 deaths per year. Why they're not labeled, why these graves don't seem to have the history that they should, we don't know at this time. But that's just it. We don't know. So jumping to conclusions, the Canadian self-flatulating way of punishing ourselves before learning our history, that needs to stop. So let's find out some more facts about that, and then we'll go from there. One fact that we do know is that it was operated by the federal government from 1969 to 1978, and Jean Chrétien was the Minister of Indian Affairs during that time, and Pierre Elliott Trudeau was the Prime Minister during that time. So that's interesting. And we also know that the Spanish flu would have hit the country around halfway through the year that this school was open, and so I mean that could have accounted for half or more or less, or who knows. We have no idea. We can't just assume that these young lives were taken illegally, or whatever the media is having you believe. So take some solace in that. Lastly, the Leafs choked once again, and they blew it in Game 7 versus the Habs. But fear not, the Habs will be destroyed by the Jets in the next week here. So take care. That's about all I know for now. Appreciate your time.